Good morning, Leadworks engineers! Today we have another exciting episode of Weekend Workshop, where we review the progress from the last week and we talk about the future progress of the next week. Planned progress, that is. Okay, so this week, Ultra Engine 1.000 has been released. I decided to, this is a good time to just increment the version. It's still early access, but it's 1.0 just because that's how the version numbering worked out. So there'll actually be one more. This is like the last major update before we exit early access. So there'll still be a few changes, but it's just about finished. In this update, we added support for Lua language server. This gives us really good auto completion and syntax hinting in the built-in script editor. Now, the Lua language server support, this was just an idea that came up in one of these meetings just like this. And this is why I hold these meetings and why I like to sit down with you guys every weekend and talk about your feelings, because sometimes you have really good ideas and I don't know everything that's out there, and every once in a while we get a suggestion like this, and at first I thought this was going to be a huge project that would take 6 months before we had something really usable that was reliable. I thought it would be very problematic. It turned out it was really simple and it only took about 4 days to add. So this was a huge win. And this is something we've really never been able to do before, giving like that. I mean, Lua is a dynamically typed language, so auto completion is always very difficult for languages like that. And it turns out there was something that was already out there that worked almost always. It works really, really well. It's actually like really awesome. This is something I was not expecting, and it's really cool when things just work out like that. When there's something, especially when there's some third-party technology that we can just plug in, and the integration is fairly painless, and it just adds so much power. I mean, this is something that would be very, very difficult or impossible for me to do myself. It would probably just take so much time that it wouldn't be worth it. So, very nice results with that. We have new video tutorials, 2 new complete series of video tutorials, over 2 hours long. They're broken up into small pieces with a written article, and there's also like 2 videos on our YouTube channel that are just all the videos combined together into one long form video. You can just sit back and watch. Each one is over an hour long. OpenVR is updated with support for the MetaQuest 3, which I have personally tested, thanks to the good people at Best Buy. I don't know why, but like when I took that headset back to Best Buy and got my money back, I felt like so much satisfaction. I don't know why, but just like for a few days after that, I was just like, I felt like I had accomplished something big. I'm not sure why. But yeah, although I liked that headset, I was also glad to get it off my hands. This version has over 100 bug fixes since 099, so yeah, I've been busy with that, and I thank you for your excellent bug reporting. And yeah, this is probably the last major update before leaving early access, but like I said, we are still in early access. The video tutorials, we have the crash course, which goes through every aspect of the editor and shows you how to visually do stuff without programming, how to use the editor. And then the Lua series teaches you everything about the Lua programming language from scratch with no prior coding experience assumed. And I'm planning on some more both programming and non-programming tutorials before the final release. Okay, so now let's talk about the current beta. This week some changes have been made in preparation for the final release. Of course, the Ultra Engine is ultimately going to be called Leadworks 5, And one of the things I needed to do to complete that transition is you just need to rename ultraengine.lib to leadworks.lib in your C++ projects files. This is available in the project properties in Visual Studio. And you need to change this in both the release and debug builds, and just make sure that you're specifying leadworks underscore D for debug in the debug build, in the debug configuration. So that's one thing that has to be manually changed in existing C++ projects. This is only if you're on the beta branch. So if you're on the stable branch, you don't have to worry about it quite yet, but it is coming before the final release. Okay, Lua projects. I think we're going to rename the source folder to scripts, and and then after you do that, you'll need to rename the scripts components folder to scripts/entities. In Leadworks 4, this was scripts/objects. I changed it to entities, and then once I did that, and I just looked at it, and it felt right. So I'm changing the for Lua projects, I'm changing the source folder to scripts, even though it's a little bit more work for me on the editor end and on the documentation, for three reasons. One is I feel that it's a little bit more, for beginners, I feel that it's a little bit less intimidating. Like if I'm just using a game engine and there's a folder of scripts, I feel that that feels more approachable to me. And then the second reason is, I'm planning on future support for projects that mix C++ and Lua. Right now, we're sort of staying away from anything like that. Like projects are either based on C++ or Lua. In the future, we want to have support for moddable projects that are written in C++, or possibly other languages in the future, but also support scripting for mods, like end user scripting. And for that, it makes a little bit more sense to have all the Lua scripts in a separate folder called scripts. And then finally, it feels right to me. It just feels better to me, but also scripts is also like, that's how Leadworks 4 did it. So that's another point in argument. That's another point on the argument of calling it scripts folder, because everything else aside, if Leadworks 4 did something a certain way and unless there's a strong reason not to do it that way, then that can tilt things slightly in favor of doing it that way. Is my basic rule. But mostly it just feels right to me. And sometimes, especially with design, the user design, the workflow design, or the user interface, I just go by feeling, like gut feeling. I think you're a lot of times your subconscious can be smarter than your conscious mind, because your conscious mind can get fooled with like erroneous logic. It can get fooled very easily, but your subconscious tends to be more reliable. It's just not very good at explaining it's not very good at articulating itself or explaining itself. SCP containment breach on Steam. The first batch of testing keys have been sent out. This is the classic unmodified game with some Steam features added, including cloud saves. It also saves your custom music tracks on Steam. Achievements, Steam achievements, Steam Workshop support, and it's going to include a free version of 3D World Studio. It won't be called 3D World Studio, it'll be called SCP Editor, but it's a free version of 3D World Studio set up specifically for making rooms for SCP Containment Breach. So that'll be a very nice addition as well. Like I said, the first batch of testing keys are sent. Feel free to add the game to your wish list on Steam. That way you'll receive notification when the final release is out. And it also helps make the game more popular. And you can sign up for the next batch of testing keys at leadworks.com/scpcb. And that's all I got to say about that. Any questions, you guys? No news right now on SCP Redacted. That is our own game. SCP. That's our own game based in the SCP universe that is in development currently using Leadworks 5. Probably not, unless we would have to, in order to port SCP CB, we would to Mac, we would have to rewrite the entire thing, which is an option. But I mean, I wouldn't do that unless I raised about $200,000 on Kickstarter, because that's a big job, and then I would consider uh, rewriting, converting all that Blitz 3D code to C++, and then I would write an OpenGL renderer to go with it. Because honestly, like, okay, one of the problems the original game has is it used DirectX. It was written with DirectX 7, and of course, if you have a game from 2000, whenever early mid 2000s, if it was written in DirectX, it's going to have a lot of problems running today. So 20-year-old DirectX code has a lot of problems running today. 20-year-old OpenGL code has absolutely no problems running today. And this is because DirectX changed very frequently. Like, every version that came out was a total rewrite. OpenGL, somehow, it had the same feature set, and yet it stayed. Its changes were much more conservative. It did change drastically, especially with like the direct state access that was added in 4.5, I think, which is really great. I love it, but it it's much more stable. So OpenGL code that's 20 years old runs perfectly fine on any computer today. DirectX code that is 20 years old has a lot of, it may not run on many computers today. I actually think that situation is going to continue. I'm not going to say I exactly like predicted it, but one of my reasons for preferring OpenGL back in the day was that it was more stable, much more stable, and like my own code wouldn't have to be rewritten every 3 years, which is not possible to do. I'm going to go ahead and say now that I think 20 years from now, OpenGL code will still work fine on future computers. But I think today's DirectX and Vulkan code is going to have a hard time. I think there's going to be a lot of problems with it running on tomorrow's computers. Because, in my experience, Vulkan code is not forever code. Like, just because you write Vulkan code and it's working today does not mean it's even going to be working in 3 years. Like, it has to be constantly maintained. And the design of the DX12 and Vulkan APIs, they're simultaneously, like, they claim that they're very close to the metal, but I don't really see that. What I see is a lot of abstract, just garbage thrown into the API. Like, for example, to make it more, so it's closer to the metal in the sense that some hardware will use that. Like, there's things in there, I can't even remember the name because I stopped thinking about Vulkan, but there's things in there that are very finely tuned for like mobile graphics. So in that sense, it is closer to the metal, but then those same features aren't used at all on PC graphics. But the API is still there for it that you have to use. You can't get away from it. So yeah, it's closer to the metal on some hardware, and on other hardware you have these needless abstractions that the driver completely ignores. So like NVIDIA drivers completely ignore the image layout state, for example. They just don't care. And so yeah, it's really weird. It's bizarre. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. But that's another example of the tech industry's psychotic break with reality. And I'm not the only one saying this anymore. Like, anyways. Would you say the same about for adding Mac support to it? No. LEDWorks on Mac is a distinct possibility. It's a matter of when and whether it's worth doing, but it's definitely technically feasible. I have not made any work. I've not done any work on integrated graphics support for LEDWorks. There's a few steps that go into that. Um, so in the post-release of LEDWorks 5.0, there's really like two main things I want to focus on, and that's like very low level stuff, refactoring some very very low level design parts of the engine, and then also some very high level stuff. Mid level stuff, I don't really want to do a lot of. I don't want to add a lot of new features. What I want to do is focus a lot on tutorials, and then at the same time rewrite some of the internals of the engine. So currently we're using a clustered forward plus renderer, which is the same as what id Software uses in their latest stuff as of the last 9 years or so. I think a deferred renderer might serve our purposes better. Not 100% sure, but my gut feeling is that a deferred renderer will work better for our needs, which I have a ton of experience with. So I was actually like one of the very first people to. LEDWorks was the first commercial game engine in the world to use deferred rendering, actually, and everybody at the time said I was crazy. Um, who's laughing now? Who's laughing now? Um, so I think switching to a deferred render would be good. I think eliminating our culling thread would be good. The clustered forward plus renderer is one of the reasons for that culling thread. I think that can be eliminated. I think I can just do like a hyper optimized C++ loop that just goes through every object in the world and test it. Because I mean, doing some simple math in a loop like that on a very large number of objects, like C++ is actually like remarkably good at that, and it's like astonishingly fast if you set it up right. So eliminate the culling thread, switch to a deferred renderer. I would like to eliminate use of bindless textures entirely. If I do those three things, then the result of that will be a renderer that will probably automatically just work on Intel graphics. And it will be much easier to port to Mac as well. So that's my answer to that. That's a very long-winded answer, but that is all the things that I have in mind. To letting it be playable under translations as an alternative to native makes support for this game. I'm not stopping anybody from using Wine. I just don't think it's going to work very well. Does Wine work on Mac? Huh. Yeah, I mean, you can if you want. You can try. I just don't think it'll work very well. Ahmed is typing something. He's typing a Tom Clancy novel. Ahmed, what product are you talking about? Okay, so so we have a forum in Discord for containment breach issues. What you can do is, I just want to focus on like Steam specific containment breach issues right now. Because I mean, the original game has bugs that will probably never be fixed. Um, and the build that's up right now is very close to the to the default. What you can actually do is just go to the games folder and double click on scpcb.exe. If that works and it doesn't work and something doesn't work, if something works when you launch it directly from the executable and it doesn't work when you launch it from Steam, that's a bug that I would like to hear about. If you have a bug and it still happens when you launch it, when you run the scpcb.exe executable, if it still happens then that's a bug that should be reported, either in the Undertow forums or the GitHub for containment breach. I need to like separate those things out right now and just focus on like what can be fixed. I mean, the final game is going to have bugs, but I just want to make sure that I eliminate any. First, I want to eliminate any bugs that occur because of Steam, or anything that I caused. Ahmed is typing. It's either Clear and Present Danger or Patriot Games. Gotcha. Thank you. And final question for the game: would you consider adding in a newer version of the multiplayer mod? We're not no. So we're um, the distribution of Containment Breach on Steam is meant to be the original game. We don't want to turn it into something else. It's just the original game, as it was meant to be played with adapted to Steam, along with the original modding tools, just updated. And then further work is going to go into our game, SCP, currently codenamed SCP Redacted. Yeah, I don't have any plans to add multiplayer support to the original Containment Breach. It's actually amazing they were able to do that. Thank you for asking them, and thank you for joining our meeting. Do we have any other questions about Ludwork stuff or SCP Containment Breach on Steam or SCP Redacted? Redacted? I feel like Christopher Walken whenever I say that word. SCP Redacted Any updates on the Linux version of LeadWorks? No, I haven't thought or done any work on Linux for LeadWorks. It's definitely doable. It's just a matter of like when the right time to do that is. And that right time is definitely after the successful launch of LeadWorks 5, which will be soon. This month. Okay. So if there are no other questions, we will wrap this up. Oh yeah, Ultra Engine Pro on Steam on sale this week. Let's see, available on Steam. And this is LeadWorks 5, so if you get this, you'll get LeadWorks 5 automatically. Good price. I recommend buying this. Buying 2 copies. One for you, one for your friend. On sale now on Steam. Steampowered.com. www.ste. Mem leak in the engine. Are you talking about, what are you talking about? What engine are you talking about? We'll change name in the Steam page. Yeah, you'll probably just be moved over to the LeadWorks app ID. Yeah. So there's a under some circumstances there is a memory leak. It's a small one. It's the kind of thing where if you create and delete thousands of entities, then the memory will go up like a couple of megabytes. That's not really. I mean, it's important, but it's not a super major concern because it doesn't. Um, there's no realistic scenario in a game where that's actually going to cause a problem. Um, I think that kind of stuff is gonna. If I eliminate the culling thread, one benefit of that is the deallocation of objects is going to get a lot simpler. And so at that point, I think that will just automatically, uh, I think that will just automatically be fixed. If not, then that's the point where I'll be revisiting that and going. If it's still going on, then I'll be revisiting that and examining it in more detail. I had McDonald's breakfast this morning, and it was like I was full for like a couple of hours, and then suddenly I went from being full to not being full, like all of a sudden. It's like eating rice. It just like you're full, and then it just all disappears all at once. So I'm getting a little bit not sure what the word is.
I get like sick when I eat it, and then like I can't eat anymore. And like a half hour later, I'm hungry again.
Yeah, it's like I'm full, and it tastes really good, and I'm full, and I'm also a little bit sick to my stomach, and then I'm really hungry.
I don't know. McDonald's is not worth it anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't do it very often. I usually regret it when I do. But yeah, I'm like kind of ready for lunch. Okay. So, yeah, thank you. This is okay. That's it. Probably not my best presentation this week, but maybe next week I won't do McDonald's. All right, thanks guys for joining.